What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Manny Maradiege. Today is Friday, August the 2nd. We finally got our first taste of NFL football back in the preseason yesterday. Pretty interesting, pretty fun just watching the new kickoff format. I'll probably talk about that more come next week, but today I wanted to talk about a few different things ranging from the dispute, sort of, that Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson had a few days ago. I wanted to talk about that and give my overall thoughts on it. Is it a big deal or not a big deal? Then some more comments Giants owner John Mara said on Brian Daboll, Joe Schoen, their potential future after 2024, and also, in his words, being happy that they gave that contract extension to Daniel Jones. Those two topics plus more coming up on today's show. And before I start off on Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson, as always, just wanted to remind you guys, if you have any questions or comments you'd like to make, to please use the tip and donations link, gsmcpodcast.net. By using that link, it ensures that I see your question or comment on my screen. I'll read it out loud, and that way get a sense of what you guys are feeling, what your guys' thoughts are on anything I say or on any other topics on today's show. It's also a massive help for the network on top of this show, so you guys, if you guys use it, we greatly appreciate it whenever you guys get the opportunity to do that. Again, the tip and donations link is gsmcpodcast.net. But that allows me to jump right into the first topic on today's show. This whole situation with Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson, and I don't want to make it too big a deal right off the bat because I think it's already become a bigger deal and it's already been, cycled through the national media already. But basically, with Aaron Rodgers, entering 2023, missing the entire 2023 season, all the high expectations that were on the Jets and on his shoulders, to miss that entire year, now to follow it up this year, being at the voluntary workouts, getting everybody excited again, making the team better, but then you get that hiccup there in the process up until now. You miss minicamp, and then, it gets revealed that you had a pre-planned trip to Egypt, and that rubbed some people the wrong way. Missing minicamp, mandatory minicamp. So, again, some people are already, starting to believe that that could have something to do leading up into this little discussion that he had with Garrett Wilson over last weekend and this past Tuesday, I also want to say, and believe, because people, they saw the first interaction. It was a pretty animated one last weekend, and that one was all right. People saw it, they talked about it, but, it was kind of swept under the rug a little bit. But then when it happens again this past Tuesday, then it starts to carry a little bit more weight, basically, within the NFL circles, seeing this, and then right away, just like that, people just jump on, the entire situation, looking for a reason why. Obviously, why you have your starting quarterback discussing or in an argument, it seems, on the sideline with the number one receiver. And now people want to, what's going on? Who do they blame? Right away, the statement, the sentiment is that, this is why Aaron Rodgers shouldn't have missed minicamp, right? That's the first thing people will point out to as to why this disconnect potentially could be happening. But right away, both Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, played it down, really. Starting with Aaron Rodgers, he said, "There's a way of doing things that we both agree on, and when it doesn't look exactly how we want it to, sometimes there's side conversations that happen. I love those conversations. It's about the details. It's about winning. It's about seeing what he sees." And he also mentioned how each of them really have to understand what the other's point of view is, what their skill set is, and understand each other's, rhythm, each other's natural cadences that they go through while running a route, through their drop back and everything like that. They have to be, I don't think a lot of people understand how much in sync the quarterback of Aaron Rodgers' caliber has to be with his number one receiver, especially when they have the potential and the talent already that Garrett Wilson has. They have to be so, just right in step with each other, and they have to know what basically the other one's going to do, like the back of their hand, to have the level of success that people are expecting out of the New York Jets this year. And because of that, you get some of these, animated conversations on the sideline, we'll say. And Garrett Wilson also talked about it and tried to calm down everybody over the speculations. He said, "When me and him are out there having those conversations, we're getting better. We're gaining an understanding for each other. And the way we go about things, the way we think and interpret the game, it's truly enlightening for me every time we have conversations like that, despite how it may look. And that's basically, what I took away from both of those statements. Both of them saying that the relationship, basically, there's nothing to worry about there. It's great. They're still in the learning process of everything. Like I said, the little nuances, the tendencies that they each have about, each of their games that the other person has to pick up on. And with Aaron Rodgers missing all that time, yes, it leads into people leaning towards the fact that he should have been there towards minicamp. But what I'll say to that, that's really the main point around all of this, is that, I just question, I see the logic behind that, but I also question, would 3 or 2 more days of mandatory minicamp really have made that much of a difference? Would it have avoided them having conversations like that? Maybe, but I don't really know that for sure. So to have that as the main argument, I think it doesn't really hold too much weight, but I see the logic behind that overall. But, this entire situation, to me, seeing these conversations on the sideline, I don't really mind it too much because, to me, in my mind, it fits into this category that I have during training camp, especially because you see a bunch of crazy things going on in training camp, a bunch of great things, a bunch of exciting things that, get you amped up for the season. You see great connections, great throws, great plays out there, and it gets you amped up for the season, right? But there's also this subcategory that I at least have in my head of the, of the things that are allowed to happen in training camp. You can get everything out in training camp, but as long as it doesn't happen during the game, it's all right with me. That's the category. This is training camp where these players can get out all, iron out all the bad things that you don't want to see during the game. And it can happen during training camp because there's no consequences, there's no fines, there's no flags. You can get it all out now, and I'll have no issue with it as long as it doesn't happen during the regular season, and as long as it's not personal, obviously. Then I don't mind, people having arguments like this, getting each other's face, having fights, trash talking to one another, quarterbacks throwing 4 interceptions, 3 interceptions, also, just going through a bad rep, your star player having a bad, rep against somebody else, a young player or something like that. All of that is fine with me. I don't have any issue with that in training camp. Again, as long as it's not personal and as long as you get it all out now, you get better during this time in training camp, then I don't really care too much. Honestly, I don't really mind it. Yes, Aaron Rodgers missed a lot of time, and would it have been a little bit more, secure, safer option for him to be there? Probably, but to say that it would have avoided something like this, I don't truly believe that, because going back to that point I made before, if you're trying to establish this level of an elite connection like Aaron Rodgers has with Davante Adams, and that's obviously where they eventually want to get to with him and Garrett Wilson, it requires so much focus, communication, and honestly, intensity that both players have to have. And when you have that level of intensity, when you're really striving for perfection day in and day out, you're going to get these clashes. You're not always going to be, completing 5 of 5 on passes on one-on-one drills or through 11 on 11s. There's going to be mistakes, and obviously you're going to learn from those, and it's going to make the Jets better overall going forward. Everybody knows what the stakes are for the Jets. I think that definitely adds more onto it. That adds more intensity, more urgency, and I don't see how that's a bad thing. If you have two guys like this clashing, not only does it make them better, but it just shows how much they care about it. Aaron Rodgers talking about at some point this offseason how being quite honest with everybody that if he doesn't perform to the level that everybody already thinks that he's going to perform to, he's probably gone. Robert Saleh's probably gone. Joe Douglas is probably gone. This whole thing is going to, just go downhill from that point and just collapse on itself and Aaron Rodgers doesn't perform. And yeah, he might seem nonchalant about it. That might, bother some people, think that he doesn't care. But when you see things like this, the intensity he brings to training and the practices and to his teammates, holding everybody accountable, I think really there's no problem with that. Getting everybody on the same page, getting everybody to know how much this really matters can only make this Jets team better, who have kind of not really been in space right now where they've had this level of expectations. Their defense is elite. They have a great number 1 wide receiver. Their running back is already being touted as a top 5 running back overall in the NFL. They got better on the offensive line, added Mike Williams. They have all the pieces there. So to disappoint and fall short of those expectations, people are going to expect perfection from here on out. So they're going to have to make sure that everybody's on top of everything. And that's really what I think this was, just holding each other accountable, making sure everybody's playing to that elite level. And we'll just see if it has to pay off. If it pays off, then no one's going to remember this at all. But when those bad results maybe start happening, then it gets a little bit dicey, and maybe you see some of these things carrying over to off the field, and that's something you don't want to see. But as long as it happens now, training camp, you get it all out of your system, I have no issue with it. I like seeing this. I like seeing some fights. I like seeing some trash talk. I think it's great to have it now among teammates because, it's just not going to last longer than that day. So I didn't see any problem with it. I like seeing this stuff happen, but let me know what you guys think about it. Did you think this was more serious than I'm, taking it, or is there something that I'm maybe missing? Please let me know what you guys think in the comments section, but we'll move on with the show. We're going to head to the first break right now, and when we return, we're going to talk about John Mara and his comments that he made recently on Daniel Jones and his contract, Brian Daboll, and Joe Schoen, and what the level of expectation is in 2024 and how that could affect Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen's future after 2024. We're going to get into that in just a few seconds. You're listening to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Back here now on the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast to move on to the New York Giants and what their owner, John Mara, recently said about basically what's been going on, what the expectations are going forward with this team. Because now that Hard Knocks is pretty much wrapping up, everybody got a real close-up look of what went down with Saquon, how they drafted, how they signed some free agents. Maybe revealing more than I think they would have liked, just because I don't think it painted the Giants in such a great picture, to say the least. But, it's out there now. Now everybody feels like they know a little bit more than probably the Giants wanted to release up until this point. And where does that leave this team now? The main question is going to be Daniel Jones. And going through Daniel Jones' career, obviously, there was that big improvement in 2022. That's exactly what Giants fans wanted to see out of Daniel. I think it surprised a lot of people. It definitely surprised me, almost just coming completely out of the blue and, going into the playoffs, winning a game on the road, and, maybe the game against the Eagles didn't go exactly how you wanted it to, but it was as good as you've seen this Giants team play in recent history. So because of that, the Giants decided to extend him 4 years, $160 million deal, going to Mr. Jones. But then, of course, from that point on, he gets that a couple off seasons ago. Then, of course, he follows that up with the poor season that he had, not playing too well after that. Then he gets injured this past year, and it's not an ideal situation. Definitely not validating that contract that the Giants gave him. And it subsequently leads to, Hard Knocks following up on that contract extension with this offseason, how it affected Saquon. And you guys know the whole story, obviously, but what do they do now? They're entering now getting away from the past, officially past Hard Knocks, and now they can focus on the future. And where does that leave Daniel Jones? Well, their owner, John Mara, the Giants owner, John Mara, told ESPN recently on Daniel Jones and what they feel, what are their feelings around him going forward. He said that, listen, I'm still happy we gave him that contract because I felt he played really well for us in 22. Last year he got hurt, and let's be honest, when he was playing, we weren't blocking anybody, so let's give him a chance with a better O-line, or better offensive line, and some weapons around him, and see what he can do. And first off, before I say how I feel about that comment on Daniel Jones, to John Mara's point, the Giants ranked last in Pro Football Focus's pass blocking grades. They ranked 24th in ESPN's pass blocking win rate. So he has a point. He's not, embellishing. He's not exaggerating the Giants, deficiencies at O-line. That is a real thing, and it does carry a lot of weight, obviously, because you're talking to a guy now that is big on the support system on quarterbacks, especially young quarterbacks. So I have to agree with that because I've harped on that point a lot. So I can understand that by John Mara, but to say that he's happy with Daniel Jones and, just referencing 2022, I'm going to get to the point I want to make, on that reference. But to say that he's happy with Daniel Jones and, trying to create this idea to everybody that they're satisfied with what they've seen, I think that is more of an exaggeration, and I'm not too satisfied with that answer just because all throughout this offseason, going back to Hard Knocks, we've seen how Joe Shane, Brian Daboll were pretty adamant about trying to trade up for a quarterback, trying to call the Commanders, the Patriots especially, not so much obviously the Bears because they were dead set on Caleb, but really the Commanders and the New England Patriots especially trying to work out a deal to maybe trade up and get their quarterback that they obviously wanted to attain in the draft and that they probably felt had more potential, had more benefit to their football team than the situation currently with Daniel Jones. And when you see that, and then you come out after that, if you're John Mara, and say that you're happy with Daniel Jones, it didn't seem like that too much because when you saw it on Hard Knocks, it seemed like John Mara, along with Brian Daboll and Joe Shane, were thinking about trading up, and Mara was pretty freely, letting this happen. If he truly felt that he was happy with Daniel Jones and that they wanted to honor that contract, and ride it out and, as he said, be happy about it, then that's not a decision you really have to consider. Yeah, you have to, I acknowledge the fact that you have to keep all your options open to maybe benefit you later on, but again, we're talking about $40 million per year for Daniel Jones, and then just to trade up, give up probably a lot to trade up to 3 or 2 and take another quarterback while you still have this guy earning about $40 million per year. That doesn't scream too much that you're satisfied or that you're happy, according to John Mara, with what you've seen so far. And John Mara, on that topic, on the idea of trading up, he said that he was just a little nervous about giving up too much to go up and get a quarterback. But again, he was ready to almost accept what Brian Daboll and Joe Shane were trying to work up there with a potential trade. But obviously, it didn't happen. The Patriots didn't want to move. The Commanders certainly didn't want to move. And now that you've chosen this path, you didn't have an easy outlet by trying to trade up to get another quarterback. Now we're talking about the expectations. Now that you have nothing else to really try and change, or you have anything else to kind of escape your way through, now you just have to ride this out, and you can't suffer through another 6-11 year like last year. That just can't happen. Up until this point, I think Giants fans have honestly suffered enough. So what is the solution? What are we looking towards now into 2024? What are we trying to attain if you're the Giants, if you're the owner, especially with seeing such disappointing performances? What can we expect? John Mara also touched on that, and he said the following. He said, I obviously want to show significant improvement over last year, but I'm not going to make any specific guarantees or demands or anything like that. But they know what I want to see. They, referring to Brian Daboll and Joe Shane, he said that both of them are aware that he expects, in his words, a big step forward after last year finishing 6-11. And now, a big step forward, what does that mean? If we try to unpack that, well, at least it has to mean probably around 500, I would assume, with feeling that you're okay keeping Daniel Jones. You've already extended him, so it seems like they're pretty adamant about not being open about maybe admitting that this was a mistake on keeping Daniel Jones. So if you're going to ride that, if you're really going to, be behind that decision to just keep Daniel Jones on this contract and you want to see a big step forward, I just question what they truly expect out of Daniel Jones. Honestly, not only just now, but when they drafted him a few years back now, I think going 4 or 3 years back now. Just really, that's the biggest question I have. If you're happy to extend Daniel Jones, but you were ready to jump on a new quarterback through this trade, what were your expectations really with Daniel Jones if you're just trying to jump off to the next best thing already, even after you extended him? Even after you've extended him and you're still thinking about finding a new quarterback, if it's still in the back of your head, that doesn't scream to me that you're fully behind this decision. And for John Mara to say he expects a big step forward, I don't know if that's too realistic. What are these expectations that they have with Daniel Jones? Do they believe that he is truly that quarterback that could get them to a divisional round, to an NFC championship game, dare I say Super Bowl? I don't even know if they believe that now that they've seen him for the last 3 years, as they did back then when they drafted him at 6th overall in that year's draft. And especially with the standard being so high now, you look at the guys that are coming out of college. CJ Stroud has set the bar up here. He has set the bar up here after the best rookie year of anybody in the NFL. That's where the standard is now. Thinking about it, in his first year, he had an exceptional year like that. Now, subsequently, everyone's going to follow suit to that. And not to mention the guys that have been in the league already for 3 years, like Daniel Jones. If the standard has already risen, like it has with CJ Stroud, you can only imagine what teams now expect out of guys that have been in the league for 4 years already, what they expect out of them. Hi, Kelsey. How you doing? Welcome to the show. But yeah, just on that topic, those expectations now for Daniel Jones, what do you believe that is after the standard has been, sort of shifted here a little bit? Also, what I didn't truly like too much about John Mara is that he referenced back to 2022, and this is what I wanted to say before. He mentioned 2022 like it was a sign almost that Daniel Jones was about to turn a corner or something like that. And you didn't know, obviously, what was going to happen in 2023, that he was going to get hurt again. But to reference that now and have 2023 happen and still reference back to 2022 and think that he's just on the verge of turning a corner, I don't think it's too crazy to say that looking back on 2022 now and seeing how 2023 went, 21, 20 as well, you can point to 2022 as almost being an outlier, as almost being an anomaly in Daniel Jones' career, more so than being something that it could be seen as a breakthrough, if that makes sense, right? You're referencing 2022 like you were on the verge of doing something, and then unfortunately he gets hurt. It's not like that was his first injury. He has been carrying these injury problems for a while now. So that's another thing that just stacks up on this, on my doubts really, on what the Giants are really thinking with Daniel Jones and what their expectations are for him, if they truly believe they could attain a big step forward, like John Mara says, with Daniel Jones as their quarterback. You also look at the idea of blaming the offensive line. I think it's just an easy out. For me, personally, I don't really like when teams do it. And I'm the first guy to point to the offensive line deficiencies and point out the fact that if a team's O-line isn't ready, that the quarterback's just not going to play well. And that's what John Mara is doing. But the O-line wasn't great back then when they drafted Daniel Jones. So to still be blaming it, at what point do you have to look and just think that this is more of a organizational problem, an evaluator problem, that the offensive line is still not fixed, and you still decided to draft a quarterback, putting him in a bad situation, even though you had Saquon Barkley? I guess that's still a positive, but to draft him still into that situation, you can't blame the O-line then, because you guys are tasked with fixing the O-line. So again, it almost just falls back on the Giants in a way, in that way. And now you look at it, this is the first year that they're not going to have Saquon Barkley now. Yeah, they brought in Malik Neighbors, but what's it going to look like without a very talented running back there? That's never happened. Daniel Jones has never been in that situation, so that's going to require a change. And then to put these expectations now on Dable and Joe Shane, I like that he's setting almost an ultimatum, but with that being said, it's just not a good situation when you're potentially threatening with restarting this whole thing again. And then, where do we fall on the Giants then? Trying to ride out this contract with Daniel Jones. They have some good weapons, receivers, but like John Mara says, the offensive line's not great. They're trying to figure out what Daniel Jones can be. I think at absolute max potential, Daniel Jones could probably get you to the wild card round and then a divisional round. If the rest of the team is not exceptional, some of the best in their positional groups, they're not going to have any chance of even thinking about going past the divisional round, much less the conference championship. But again, it's just been bad planning, it seems. John Mara, I like that he's setting an ultimatum now, but he is risking the fact that they are going to have to restart this whole thing again, and it's not a good situation for the Giants, but it's unfortunate because I like Malik, I like some of the weapons that they have on offense, but it's just been poorly planned. So that's where I stand on it. That's what John Mara, ultimately said about this. Brian Dable and Joe Shane's jobs could be on the line now, so we'll see how that, affects everybody through the regular season and whatnot. But leave your guys' thoughts on the Giants situation. Do you think this is a quick turnaround, or are we looking towards another long-winded sort of rebuild here? Kelsey, are you ready for the weekend? Yes, I am. I'm looking forward to the weekend, as I always am, but I'm always looking forward to coming on here and talking with you guys during the week. So that'll be that segment. That'll be my thoughts on the Giants and John Mara. But with that being said, we got some more topics to get to on today's show. The NFL is trying out some new technology, trying it out during the preseason this year, the Sony Hawkeye technology that should help them determine the first down measurements a lot faster than the old chain system that the NFL has had for as long as I can remember. So we're going to get into that. What exactly is it? How is it going to work? And is it a good solution for the NFL to integrate now sooner over later in this season? So we're going to get to that right after this break. You're listening to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
We are jumping back into the action on the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast to bring up some new technology that could be integrated into the NFL come 2025, actually, because on Wednesday, the Associated Press reported that the NFL will start to use Sony's Hawkeye technology in a few of the preseason games this month, acting as sort of a trial run, a sort of tryout right now for the NFL to see how efficient and accurate this new technology could be in not only the preseason, but if it works out all perfectly or as they'd like it to work out, then they could start to slowly integrate it come 2025. Because also on Wednesday, to go along with this announcement over this new technology, why Sony? Why this new Hawkeye technology? Why did the NFL decide to go this route? Well, they also announced on Wednesday, like I said, the NFL did a partnership with Sony to make them the official tech partner of the NFL going forward. So on top of this new technology being integrated, all head coaches starting in 2025 will also start to wear official Sony headsets to, I guess get the plays better, to make it a lot clearer through new shiny looking headsets. It's a plus, that must be cool for the head coaches, but it's all part of this partnership now that the NFL has agreed to with Sony going forward. And more on this Hawkeye, technology, what even is it? Well, they, brought out a statement, Sony did, on just an overview of what this technology could bring. It said in their statement that it is a state-of-the-art line to gain optical tracking technology to review and make critical rulings on plays, hoping to achieve the highest level of integrity for the game. So it's basically, coming in here to try and replace and improve on the chain group, on the chain gang, to measure the distances when it comes into question between, is it a first down, is it not? Basically trying to develop from bringing out the chains, getting everybody to measure it, basically eyeballing it, if we're being honest, in some of these, measurements, seeing what's a first down, what's not, and then instead of getting an index card out or just, again, like eyeballing it if it's a first down or not, you're going to have this technology be integrated now and be a lot more accurate, hopefully, for the NFL in trying to determine and measure this distance for a first down. Although the only caveat with this, the only downside you could say with this new technology, is that it still won't determine the spot of the ball itself. So when somebody steps out of bounds, or when, when a ball goes out of bounds or something like that on its own, it rolls out of bounds, it's still really up to the referees, the replay system, to see exactly where it was, taken out of bounds or something like that. So the technology won't really give them all the answers, but mostly it will come down to the most important decision in measuring how close it is to the first down, how much over did the first down marker, did it go? All those things, this technology is supposed to improve upon this entire process of it. But really where this improvement is and what the importance of this is that the game isn't going to be slowed down. That's another thing that I think the NFL has been trying to change, has been trying to improve upon, is because these games are already long enough with replays on a bunch of plays already, and it's a 4-hour game, pretty much 3-hour game already. You don't want to have situations now where you're dragging it on, having people bring out these chains, measuring it out, seeing exactly where the spot is. They're already doing that with replay, so any way that they can try to improve this and make it a little bit quicker, the NFL is always going to try to do it. And I really like it because not only does it speed up the game, it should be more accurate, like I said. And on top of, stopping the replays and having referees eyeball it, you now have this technology that's supposed to, be exact, almost down to the exact millimeter with this new technology, and seeing how close it is actually to the first down marker, depending on still where the spot of the ball is. So, again, that's going to be pretty critical because, yeah, this new technology is coming in, and yeah, it's going to be quicker, more efficient. It's just going to, measure it out and communicate the decision to the referees, so they don't have to replay it themselves. But it's still going to be up to the referee, whoever's closest, to determine exactly where that spot is, on where it went out of bounds or something like that. And based on that, the system will give them an accurate deception of where everything is supposed to go and how close it is to that first down marker. But on top of that, Sony's president, their COO, Neil Manowitz, said on this partnership and on the impact of this new Hawkeye technology, he said, "We're reducing a significant amount of time, 40 seconds for each time of use, that basically is making the game that much more impactful." And with that, that's pretty much, summarizing what this new technology is going to do. And it might not seem like a big deal, but again, when you see how much more efficient it is, and you don't have to take too much stoppages in an NFL game where there's already enough stoppages, I think we can all agree on. When it becomes quicker and you're seeing how efficient this process now is, I think once we get into regular seasons and seeing how impactful it really is, that's really where it's going to make a difference. But right now, it just really sounds cool, to me at least. So I'm excited to see it. I'm always for the NFL, not just the NFL, but sports in general, incorporating more technology to make it a bit more faster, hopefully a lot more accurate and efficient. Yeah, it comes with its disputes, some of its controversies, but overall I think it still does a pretty good job, and we can only be hopeful now with this new technology because they've partnered with the NFL, so it's probably going to happen at some point or another. There hasn't been any specific dates on which preseason games this technology is going to be used in, but this new system is not expected to, be fully integrated until next year's regular season, according to the Associated Press, because right now, the NFL Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer Garrett Brantley mentioned how the NFL is still currently going through an installment phase with this new technology, so you can only imagine how long that takes for one stadium, but to get it in all stadiums, obviously, because it's going to have to happen in all of them, you can only imagine how long that's going to take. So at the earliest, it's going to be fully integrated in 2025, but they have enough incorporated now, installed up until this point to try and get it into some preseason games to test it out, how smooth it is and all those things. So look out for that. They haven't really specified when and where, but I'm sure those details will come out as we get closer to the preseason games, I believe, starting next week. So we get more football and we get to see some of this new stuff be integrated on top of the kickoff rule and things like that. But like I said, I'm a big fan of it just overall. What are your guys' thoughts on it? I'm a big fan. It's similar to, if I can provide an example, I feel like it's sort of similar to soccer and their goal line technology that some leagues have in some of their stadiums. If you have any, knowledge of what I'm talking about in goal line technology, it's usually when this technology on the soccer goals, sort of lets the referee know when the ball has fully crossed over the line to determine if it's a goal or not. Before then, it was just up to the referee's best judgment, the line referee's best judgment, and a lot of times you saw some teams get, screwed because of those decisions. So they incorporated this technology, and yeah, it might still come with its controversies, but overall it definitely has improved and taken, I think, some of the pressure off the referees because they definitely already have enough on their plate to make such critical decisions. If they get a decision like this wrong and they take away a goal or a first down or something like that in the NFL, they're going to get killed over it. And they're already getting killed over a bunch of decisions that they have to make. They are trying their best. So to take one thing off, I think could only be beneficial for the referees. And also, I just want to see how much the spot of the ball really affects how this technology is used, because that's still on human error, on human, just ability to see where the spot of the ball is. So that's my only, doubt about this, but I think overall it should be great. I want to know when it happens so I can tune in and see how cool, how efficient it is. But overall, this decision to have this new technology be incorporated, I think it's a good decision. They're probably going to have more of this sort of stuff to help out the referees to come more so in the future. They're still going to have the chains out there as a backup situation in 2025 when they fully go to this new technology. So it's not like they're going to completely get rid of it. There's always malfunctions or things like that where it just doesn't work, I'm sure. So they're still going to have this in stadiums as a backup, but it's no longer going to be the first option anymore to determine some pretty important decisions, determining first downs in some critical games. So I'm excited to see it overall. The NFL partnering with Sony, it's great. The coaches get new headsets, so that's awesome. And now we get to see this new technology, and hopefully it works to the best of its abilities and, just continues to grow the game overall in the NFL. So that'll be that segment. The NFL becoming more modern, modernizing the game even more. But the next two segments now are more so revolving around the NFL Top 100 list. I mentioned yesterday how I'm going to be reacting in the next segment on the 20 through 11 ranked players in this year's list. But the last segment on today's show is going to be more of a prediction from my point of view. I'm going to be predicting the top 10 players in the NFL Network's top 100 player rankings of 2023. Because the NFL Network won't officially release it until 8 o'clock Eastern Time PM this evening, so about half an hour when I'm done recording. I can't react to it, so we're going to predict it. I have the players list. We're going to react to it and, predict the top 10 on top of reacting to players ranked 20 through 11 coming up right after this break.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
We are back here on the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, and we're going to be talking about the NFL Network's top 100 player rankings of 2023. I always look forward to these rankings just because I feel like it holds the most weight. We're talking about the most accurate ones because it is based off on their peers' ranking of some of these players. So they interview a lot of NFL players and determine how all these players, 100 players, rank in the NFL based on their peers' evaluation of them. And I really like that over, other executives, coaches, or things like that ranking players. I think this is the most accurate one, and I always like seeing why they're ranked there. So I wanted to react to, after reacting to 30 through 21 yesterday, I wanted to bring up here 20 through 11 because it leads into the last segment, obviously, in the top 10. So we're going to provide that. I'm going to provide that for you guys now. Looking at 20 through 11 here on this segment before we get going with just my thoughts on it, we have, starting off this section, C.J. Stroud at number 20, followed up by Roquan Smith, the Baltimore Ravens linebacker, at number 19. Then Justin Jefferson, a surprise to me, at number 18, followed up by Micah Parsons and his teammate Dak Prescott at the 16th overall spot. Then we move down a little bit towards the list before I give my thoughts on these rankings. We have at number 15, Jalen Hurts. Then George Kittle at 14. CeeDee Lamb making the third Cowboy in this section at 13. Then we have Josh Allen at number 12. And Fred Warner rounding out this group at number 11. And there's some interesting things to pick out of this. Some drops, a lot of drops actually, in this section. Starting with CJ Stroud, he definitely wasn't a drop. He's actually, to debut at number 20 after your first season is insane. It's remarkable. He's the youngest player in the top 100 list this year at 22 years old. He debuted at number 20, obviously, like I said, which is crazy. Setting a new standard, like I said back in the Daniel Jones segment. A new standard for rookie quarterbacks to right away be considered as a top 20 player by his peers. After only his first year at 22 years old, this guy could be in the NFL for 14, 13 more years, and to think that he's this high, it's great. It's awesome for Texans fans. So to have him that high is great. He led the NFL in passing yards per game and in passing to touchdown ratio as well at 23 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. He was averaging 273 yards per game as a rookie. So now that you can only imagine what it's going to be now with Stephon Diggs coming over, Tank Dell, hopefully all healthy, Joe Mixon, and that defense that they improved upon as well. CJ is set up super nicely. He's also the youngest quarterback to start and win a playoff game. So he's just stacking accolades up until this point. To have him any higher would have been a little crazy, but in the same breath, this guy, again, just sets a new standard for rookie quarterbacks. So, yeah, it might have been surprising, but I don't think too many people would have made a fuss about it at all. He starts off the list. Then you have Roquan Smith. He improved upon last year's positioning, climbing 5 spots to now be at the number 19 spot. And he basically, is the embodiment of the Baltimore Ravens, right? When you think of the Baltimore Ravens, at their peak historically. You think of guys like Ed Reed, Terrell Suggs, Ray Lewis, those guys on the defensive side of the ball right away, and I think Roquan Smith is right in that conversation, leading arguably the NFL's best defense, overall just being a voice in the image of the Baltimore Ravens as an entire team, alongside Lamar Jackson. I think he improved upon his spot at number 19. I think this is where he should be overall in the 20, and if he gets even better, in the 22 top 10 range, honestly. It's really him and Fred Warner as the elite off-ball linebackers, and they've done a great job of just building around him after they traded with the Chicago Bears to go and get him. And again, he's just everything you'd want in an off-the-ball linebacker, the leadership, the play, extremely fast, communicates everything, extremely smart. To be at number 19, I think, is the bare minimum for Roquan Smith, so I didn't have a problem with that. Justin Jefferson dropping 16 spots to number 18 after being ranked at number 2 last year is a pretty significant drop, not so much because of his play, but just because he only played in 10 games last year, and the fact that he recorded a 1,000-yard season in 10 games, you do the math, that's about 100 yards per game. It speaks to the talent that this guy has. With the carousel of quarterbacks that was going on in Minnesota, for him to perform like he did and still be close to making the playoffs says a lot about him. And another 1,000-yard season, like I said, it brings him to a total of 5,899 yards in his first 4 seasons, which is the most amount of yards a receiver has had in NFL history through his first 4 years. So that's super impressive. Obviously, regarded as one of the best receivers in the game, if not the best. It's a big drop, but if he wasn't hurt, he probably would be right around the top 10 mark easily. So that's where he ranks. No problem with that because he missed time. Then you get to Micah Parsons, and he's another one that dropped. He actually dropped 8 spots from number 9 last year to 17. Even though, stat-wise, it was arguably the best of his career. He posted a career-high 14 sacks, but I think just overall with how the Cowboys played, and I think more people bringing more attention to him now at this point, this stage of his career, it might not look as impressive, and he might not perform a lot of times. When the Cowboys get to those big moments, the light might be, some people might say it's too bright. He hasn't really performed in those big moments yet, so around 17 might be a little low for me. I still think he's probably the second or third best edge rusher in the entire NFL, so I think this is as low as he'll ever go, honestly, but I think he probably could have earned himself a bit higher spot, around 10 through 13 to me, but again, we're just splitting hairs here. And speaking of the Cowboys and just the same reasonings for Dak Prescott at number 16, he actually improved tremendously, climbing into the top 20 by climbing 40 spots from his previous ranking in 2023, because this was his best season statistically. In the regular season, he was lights out, but again, there still remains that little room where you want to see more performances in the playoffs. But to be at 16 and jump 40 spots, I think you could be happy with that. They're just missing, splitting hairs and getting through that playoff barrier. Could it happen with the Cowboys? Maybe not. I don't think it will, but I think he's still a great quarterback, highly regarded in the NFC, so 16 shouldn't be too bad, shouldn't create too much of a controversy there. Then we get into the other half of it. Jalen Hurts, again, another player that dropped. He dropped 12 spots from being number 3 last year to 15 this year. It just goes off of that disappointing second half of the year that the Eagles had as a team, but a lot of people could look to Jalen Hurts and him not performing to the standard that he set in 2022 when they made the Super Bowl, so that all plays into it, but the talent is still there, obviously. He didn't have an awful year. He just had a bad year for his standards, so with that being the case and all wrapping it up into one, 15 is still not too bad for Jalen. I don't think I would have gone any higher than that, so not too bothered by that. Then you have George Kittle at 14, climbing 5 spots from the number 19 spot last year. He earned his second All-Pro selection after 2023. A big part to this, San Francisco offense, had a great year statistically, and again, highly regarded among tight ends as being able to do everything, whereas maybe Travis is more so receiving and, almost like a wide receiver getting those numbers. It's kind of hard to pick out any deficiency in George Kittle's game other than the fact that the 49ers just have too many weapons and don't throw him the ball enough. But as a blocker, he's great. As a pass catcher, he's phenomenal. He's a game changer. And to be at 14 and climb this year, I think it was well-deserved, earning All-Pro as well. Much deserved to George Kittle. Then at 13, at CeeDee Lamb, is another one. Is a big 21 spot jump from his previous ranking last year in 2023. Crazy historic year for CeeDee Lamb, the third Cowboy in this section. He led the NFL in receptions, scrimmage yards, and total touchdowns. And to me, it seems a little low just because I felt that CeeDee really made as good of a case that he's ever going to make the top 10 after this year, statistically in the regular season. So to be at 13, I found it a little disappointing. I probably would have had him in my top 10, and we're going to get to who maybe shouldn't be in the top 10 when I predicted in the next segment. But 13 seems a little low for me for the season that CeeDee Lamb had. Talking about low, Josh Allen is another one that falls out of the top 10 after being ranked number 8 last year. Being at number 12 this year, for a lot of people, seems almost disrespectful. But I think it goes with that title that Josh Allen has. I think he's the most polarizing quarterback in the NFL up until this point. Maybe he has a close case with Dak, but I think with both of them, some people extremely love them, extremely think that they're a top 3, top 2 quarterback, but then there's others that bring up the playoff success, the disappointment, decision-making, and things like that. So to be at 12, again, he's another one that I might have really considered for the top 10, but it is what it is now at 12. I would say that's still low for him. And then you look at Fred Warner at number 11 to kind of close out this section. He jumps up 4 spots to be right outside the top 10, and much deserved. I have no problem with it. Like I said, him and Roquan are right there for the best off-the-ball linebacker. And this year, he had a career year, setting career highs in interceptions with 4, passes defended at 11, forced fumbles, he had 4 of them, and he was the highest ranked. He is the highest ranked off-ball linebacker in this entire list. This is his highest ranking in the 5 times he has made the top 100 list. And now I think it just speaks to the 49ers because you look at Fred, you look at George, you look at Brock Purdy, Ayuk, Debo's on this list. With both of them making the list now in this section, it means that the 49ers have 7 players in the top 100 right now. They have 5 inside the top 30, and that's without Christian McCaffrey and Trent Williams. So they could have up to 9 players on this list, and again, it's no surprise why they're always in the conference championship, it seems. So Fred Warner, much deserved at 11. I don't have a problem with that at all. But that wraps up the 20 through 11s. Leave your guys' thoughts on whether you guys like these rankings. Do you think some are too low? Do you think some of these guys should have made the top 10? I'd love to know what you guys think on this part of the list. But now we're going to get into what I believe the top 10 should be. Again, the official announcement is coming in about half an hour from now at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. But I know who's supposed to be on the list, so we're going to rank them according to what I believe the top 10 should be and sort of what I feel like the NFL is going to do in terms of rankings. So that'll be the next segment. Stick around to find out who the top 10 players are in the NFL in 2023 right after this break. Thank you for joining me here on the show to go over the last segment on today's episode and of the week. Still continuing on from the last segment, talking about players ranked 20 through 11. Now we're going to get into the much anticipated top 10 of the NFL Network's top 100 player rankings. I have the players in front of me, and to be honest with you guys, I thought this morning when I was going through this segment, I thought I had all the players exactly of who was going to make this list, and then I saw a post by the NFL and saw that I missed it by one guy. And if it is true, and if I missed it by one guy, then I'm extremely surprised that this one player did not make the top 10. I thought it was a little questionable that he made the top 10, but the fact that he's not even in the top 10 and not even potentially on this list could be even crazier and mind-blowing to me. But I won't keep teasing you guys with who this player is. We're going to go through it and go through the explanations and whatnot on everything that I have for this top 10 of the top 100 player rankings. So we're going to go through it starting off with the 10 through 6 that I have here. So before I go through these guys and explain why I have them here, the players that should be in the top 10, according to what I saw on Instagram, should be these guys that you see here. And I just realized that if I give out the other names, it's going to give out the other half of the list. So I'm not going to go through the players. We're going to go through these guys on the screen. Starting off with Max Crosby. At number 10, that player that I thought would have been on this list was going to be Denzel Ward. And I went through the rest of the top 100 list, and I could have missed it. I could have made a mistake and missed them earlier on. But I went through it, and I swear I did not see his name anywhere else on this list. So I thought he was going to be originally the 10th ranked player in this list. But also, when I thought that, I thought, wait a second, like Max Crosby's not on this list. Where's he going to fit in? Where is he going to fit in? Are they going to leave Max Crosby off of the list? So then when I saw that Instagram post, I saw the players that were going to be ranked in the top 10, and Max Crosby was the one on the list. So I'm guessing Denzel Ward is off this list. He didn't make the top 100. Again, unless I missed it, but I swear I didn't see his name anywhere else. That's pretty crazy to me, talking about Denzel Ward, because in the ESPN rankings, reacting to the top 10 corners, he was the second ranked corner on that list. And in this top 10, I also realized that Pat Surtain wasn't in here. And then I went back through the list and I saw his name in the 50s. So if he's the quote-unquote best-ranked defensive back in the NFL, and he's at 50, I guess it makes sense that Denzel is not on the list, but that's what really confused me when I was making this list. But now, going into the rankings on these guys who should all be in the top 10, starting with Max Crosby, he was a guy that I was surprised originally that I thought wasn't going to be on the list, but then when I saw the post, he definitely should be somewhere in this list. And to be the top 10, according to me, where I would have him ranked, it is deserved. I think he is one of the players that consistently at edge rusher, he is almost the total embodiment of what the Las Vegas Raiders are. I think he fits exactly what Antonio Pierce is as a head coach and what sort of attitude they want to carry. So to be at number 10, a little surprising to me, just because we just finished talking about Josh Allen potentially being in there. Denzel Ward could have made a case for it also. Pat Surtain as well. For Max Crosby to be on here, honestly, the rest of the rankings could have been, changed to where all those guys should have been on the list. So, regardless of that, I think Max definitely deserved the spot on this list. Had one of his best years this past season. One of the leaders of this team. I'm pretty sure he got a contract extension as well. For him to be ranked this high, and you see some of the other guys, Chris Jones and Myles Garrett, it shows the value of the edge rushers now in the NFL. So for three of these guys to be already in the top 10, I think it's no mistake about it. And for him to start off the list, I don't really have too much of a problem with it. I was just a bit confused on who was going to be left off of this list. But then you go to number 9, according to myself. Trent Williams makes the top 10 for me. Last year, he was 14, so it is a pretty significant jump. Constantly regarded as one of the best overall tackles in the NFL, and definitely could say the best left tackle in the NFL. So it's a big upgrade from season to season. He didn't give up a sack last year. And again, there's no way that he wasn't going to be on the list after all. So for him to be in this top 10, I put him at number 9 just because he is the best at his position, but we're still talking about a tackle. I can't put him over some of the other guys on this list, even if he is extremely great, almost perfect at what he does. The positions, again, is what matters, so he'll be my number 9. And then at number 8, it kind of has something to do with number 7, but I'll talk about that when I get to Chris Jones. Travis Kelce at number 8, to me, it was a down year in 2023 by his standards, not by everybody else's, because in 2023, it was the first time in the last 7 years that Travis Kelce didn't record a 1,000-yard season. So, again, his struggles kind of played off of the other players' struggles on offense. The Chiefs' offense, I think for the first time in a long time, looked pretty stagnant and pretty frustrating in 2023, and Travis, again, was another player that looked frustrated by how they were performing on that side of the ball. The talent level wasn't really where we were accustomed to seeing it, and I think Travis suffered again by his standards. He still recorded, I think, like 920 yards, so he didn't miss the mark by too much, but overall, it was a worse year by his standards. I think last year he was number 5, so to be number 8, I don't think that's too big of a problem. I had to fit him in there based on what I said of Chris Jones. And Chris Jones, he was ranked number 10 last year, and after I saw that Instagram post of who the players were going to be in the top 10, I saw a video of Chris Jones talking to the people of NFL Network, kind of trying to get a hint of where he was going to be ranked, and he basically said that he was going to be in the top 7. So off of that, I had to put him here. He could be higher. I wouldn't be surprised if he's higher, but in my rankings, where I see it fit, I have him at number 7. He's at least going to be the 7th ranked player on this list, if not higher. But again, he deserves to be in the top 10. Another player that's regarded as the best in his position. With Aaron Donald retired now especially, there's not too many that compare to Chris Jones and his production. And right away, the play that jumps out to me is in the Super Bowl. Maybe he doesn't put up 15, 17 sack seasons from his position. That's almost impossible to do. But in the biggest moments, sort of like Aaron Donald in the Super Bowl, Chris Jones had his Super Bowl moment this year when it was that critical third down with the 49ers in the red zone, and it looked like Brock Purdy had a clear passing lane to, I think it was Deebo Samuel or Juwan Jennings in the end zone to take the lead, but it was Chris Jones who was beelining through the middle of that offensive line, got in Brock Purdy's face, made him throw it away, and it saved the game for the Chiefs. Obviously, the 49ers went on to kick the field goal, they tie it up, they go into overtime, and the Chiefs end up winning it, in major part for Chris Jones, and always seeming to step up in the biggest moments. So there's no doubt he should be a top 10 player. I had him at number 7 just based on the rest of this list. Then we get to number 6, talking about the defensive player of the year, Mr. Myles Garrett. Again, another player consistently considered the best of his position. I don't think he's the best, and that's why I have him at number 6. He won the defensive player of the year, but again, he's just a physical, he's a freak. He's a guy that just intimidates you just by looking at him, being an opposing offensive tackle. He is the main stage of that Browns defense, constantly a nuisance, constantly making his presence felt on that side of the ball, creating havoc, a menace in the running game, in the passing game as well. You can't hold on to the ball too long because of him and his presence, constantly creating quarterback pressures and things like that. He should be a top 10 player. Just in my opinion, I don't have him ranked ahead of the number 5th ranked player. In my opinion, TJ Watt. To me, the best pass rusher in the NFL, the best at his position. I saw in those ESPN rankings that an executive or a coach or whoever it was said that he was the Aaron Donald of edge rushers, and might be a little crazy. I don't think that's too far off, honestly, because TJ, if you watch Steelers games and you watch how much he actually means, not only to the defensive side of the ball, but overall as a player on this team, the Steelers' record with and without TJ Watt is an absolute joke. It's a joke of how how much he impacts winning. And just on top of that, people compare him to Myles Garrett, the Defensive Player of the Year, going to Myles Garrett this year. Just what I would say to that, statistically, based on production, you look at Myles and you look at TJ. TJ surpasses Myles Garrett in total tackles, solo tackles, sacks, forced fumbles, fumble recoveries, interceptions, all in 2023 and in both of their careers. So, again, TJ has the production to back it up. He almost broke the NFL sack record that one year. He's coming off of, not this year, but the year before that, off of a injured-riddled season. But to me, he should be ranked in the top 5 with how impactful he is to winning. And then the rest of this list, Tyreek Hill at number 4. A historic season in 2023, led the NFL in almost every statistical category for receivers. Major part to what the Dolphins do on offense, and also how good Tua Tagovailoa was this year. So for him to be a top 4 player, again, it kind of goes with the pattern of the NFL being an offensive-based league, and that's why the top 4 are all offensive-based players. Off after Tyreek Hill, same thing with Christian McCaffrey, pretty much led all running backs in every statistical category. When people think of the prototypical running back, they go straight to Christian McCaffrey. Doesn't really deal with injuries too much. That could be the only thing you point to, honestly, but that's not even a big problem. He catches the ball well, runs it great. He does everything for this 49ers team as if they honestly needed him, but he just makes them an absolute nightmare to deal with. So I have him at number 3. Arguably could have won MVP, but they're never going to give it to anybody but a quarterback, so I have to put him at number 3. Then at number 2, we have the MVP of the regular season, Lamar Jackson. I felt that he improved over last year, took a better step in the passing department, while everybody still thinks he's only a running quarterback. That's what he does best, but as a passer, I thought he improved a lot. He's got some more weapons around him, so that should benefit him to continue to grow even more. Finally got some success in the playoffs, made it to the conference championship. So based on what he does, such a unique skill set for the quarterback position, arguably the best running quarterback in NFL history. I had to put him at number 2, and at number 1, it's Patrick Mahomes, obviously. No real explanation for it. I don't think I really need to. Won the Super Bowl MVP. Just steps up in the biggest moments. It's basically Patrick Mahomes. I don't think it's any surprise on who number 1 was going to be. There was some doubt that it could be Lamar just because he won the MVP. And he is just spectacular when you watch him play. But I think the safe bet is Patrick. I think they're going to give it to Patrick again for a second consecutive year. But those are my predictions on how I would rank it and what I kind of think it's going to be like when the NFL Network officially announces it in about 20 minutes. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully I get a bunch of these correct. That would be super cool. But leave your guys' thoughts on my rankings, on my predictions of the NFL Top 100. But that'll do it for today's show. I want to thank you guys for staying to the end of this episode, and I'd like to please remind you guys to like, follow, and subscribe to the show, as well as following the network on all forms of social media. If you want to see more of this show, more of the content around this show, check out both YouTube channels for YouTube Shorts, all the live shows, and individual segment videos. And as a final reminder, tune in every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time for more football content, NFL discussions in this great league with me, Manny Maradiaga, as your host, signing off for this week. Hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys back here on Monday.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.